Three games, 3 hours, only using Scratch, but there's a twist. With each game gets harder to make. The first game I'll be making is a simple cookie clicker. The timer will start right when I press create. The first thing I do is delete the Scratch cat and search the web for a PNG cookie that I can use. Once I find the cookie, I bring it into my project and start coding. The cookie I was wanting to use in my project was a bit too big, but luckily the Scratch program has a size changer that I could use. I changed the size till I thought it would be the perfect size for a cookie clicker. So what I'm doing now is making it so whenever the mouse hovers over the cookie, you can then click and it will add 1 point to a variable named cookies. At first you could just hold the mouse down and get infinite cookies, but now I fixed it so you would have to click to get cookies. Now I'll make the variable reset when the game starts, and then make the cookie shrink to have a click effect. Once I was done, I wanted to make little cookies spawn anywhere on the screen and disappear. But first I had to get the range of the width and height to make the clones spawn in random positions. Looking at this now, I realized they have a move to random position that I could have used. Once I was done with that, then went and make a shop so you can purchase upgrades. I first had to make it interactive so when you hover over the button it would change sprites. And then make it so where when you click on the shop button it will hide the cookie so it doesn't get in the way of purchasing upgrades. Now with that done, all I need is a back button so you're not stuck in the shop. I made the back button only show when you press the shop and make it disappear when you press back. The first thing I wanted to add to the shop was a auto mine that gives one cookie per of how much mines you have. So what this means is that if I have 2 mines purchased, then I'll be making 2 cookies per second. And if I were to have 5 purchased, then I'll be making 5. Since I don't know how to make my own sprites, I went to Google and searched cookie mine PNG and found one I thought looked pretty good. After importing the sprite, I went to create the purchase button to buy a mine. While making the purchase button, I decided to make a cookie mine cost 50 cookies and made it so when you purchase, it will spawn a mine at a random position that you can drag across the screen. So how I got the mines working is the amount of mines you have is the amount of cookies you're getting per second. After I tested the mines, I then went on and made a clicker upgrade that gives you an extra click. Once I made the button for clicker, I swapped its position with mines, and so now whenever you buy a clicker, say if you bought it just once, then your amount of clicks will be 2. So now every time you click the cookie, you'll be getting 2 instead of 1. It can also stack, so if I have 10, then I'll be making 10 cookies per click. After making a clicker upgrade, I decided to make something cursed, which is why I named it cursed. It will cost 10 million and it is overpowered. Around this point of the video, I am at 20 minutes around that time, and so at this point I just wanted to clean things up and just make a better UI. So after making the UI for the cookies, I made a leaderboard that will save your username automatically and it will stay there forever. And it's just a big shout out to anyone who's watching this and that goes to play my game. The final thing I'm adding to this cookie clicker game is the shine behind the cookie that just rotates infinitely throughout as you play making cookies. This is medium and the game I chose to make is tic-tac-toe, and as you know, right when I press create is when the timer starts. First thing I decide to do is make the board so I can see where the spots will be. It was a bit too big at first, but I resized it so it fitted the screen. The black tiles is the thing you, the player, will click to place a X or a O. I then started making separate sprites so all of them can be clicked on. Once I was done, I decided to resize them by 50% so it didn't take up much room. Once when I was done with that, I decided to make a button that would tell the player whose turn it was. After making the button design, I made it so it would pick a number between 1 and 2 to decide whose turn it is. I then picked 2 sprites that represented X and O, so when you clicked on one of the tiles, it would place a X or an O depending on the player's turn. After I got the sprites ready, it was time to code a tile to make it so depending on the player's turn, it would either clone a X or a 0 into its spot. I won't explain what everything does, but in short terms, it makes it so whenever you click the sprite, it will stop the script, but before it stops, it will clone X or 0 depending on the player's turn into that position. My biggest mistake was not making it so both of them turned off when either an X or 0 was in there. So I'll skip to the part on how I fixed it. So how I fixed it was I combined both of them, so when you clicked on the title, it will stop both of the scripts at the same time. This alone makes it so whenever it's the next player's turn, they can't just click on the same tile that you clicked on. I then paste it into each tile so I would have a working tic-tac-toe script. I then made a text saying either blue wins or orange wins. I made variables 1 to 9 to represent the tiles. I made it so when blue goes, it turns the tiles variable into 1. This helped so I can make a code that is always checking if blue or orange has 3 in a row. This is basically just showing of what I said. So when I click the tile, it will turn the variable into a 1, but if it's orange's turn, then it will turn that variable into a 2. Once I was done with that, I could start making the code to check if blue or orange has 3 in a row. Now, how I was able to do this was I was making it so if the top 3 tiles equaled 1, then blue wins, but if they all equal 2, then orange wins. And it also works so if you went diagonal, as in 1, 5, 9, and basically if those 1, 5, 9 equals 1, then blue wins, and so on. Around this time, I only had 20 minutes, so I was stressing a lot trying to make this work. There were a lot of patterns, but to make it easier for me, I started off with blue patterns and just paste it to the left and turn that all so it would work for orange. This is what it looked like when I was done for blue and orange, but my biggest mistake was not noticing this sooner. So basically, I accidentally made it so both of those right there were if blue wins. So I was wasting time on trying to fix orange when it was just one simple line. Once I fixed it, I then made it so all the tiles disappear when you press the green flag so they don't get in the way. So everything was working now, and I made a text at the top left corner, and after that I published the game on Scratch. It's titled Tic-Tac-Toe in 1 hour, and yes, I know I spelled tack wrong, but I fixed that after this video. Here's me just testing it out. This is difficulty hard, and what I decided to make for this is a 2-player shooter. So how it's gonna work is one player will control one with WASD and shoot with F, and the other player will control with arrow keys and shoot with M. The first thing I started to work on were the player models, which were just 2 balls, and I started working on the ground. After that, I then decided to work on the WASD and arrow key movements for the players. This is what it looked like, and now I can start making the model for the fake gun. Once I was done with the gun model, I could then make it so this gun goes to player 2 and it will forever point at player 1, so there is no mouse involved to aim. I made the player models a bit bigger, so no matter what the gun is, it would look normal for the player. I wanted to make it so the gun will be pointing normally at player 1 no matter where he's at, so I started to mess around with the gun's direction. I made a variable and made it so the variable equals the gun's angle, so I could then make it so if it passes a certain angle, then it will switch to a different custom that makes it seem like it's just pointing the other way. Once that was done, I made a variable for player 1 and copied and pasted the same gun model and just changed it up so it will go to the player 1 and always point at player 2. So with that done, I can now make the bullet for player 1's gun and a bullet for player 2's gun. So what I'm going to be trying to do is make it so whenever F is pressed, player 1, whatever the direction the gun's in, is where the bullet is going to be going. So here's me making it so if this specific key is pressed, it will make a clone of itself. And when it starts as a clone, it will forever move till outside of the screen where it will be destroyed. And my mistake is that I forgot to put a move by 10 steps. So after adding a move by 10 steps, I forgot to make it go to the player, and then I made a script saying that if the bullet were to go outside of the screen, then it will delete that clone. I made the bullet point in the same direction the gun was facing, so it would go forward towards the position the gun was facing at. Now all I needed to do was add a health bar system for player 1 and player 2 and make a win screen. I made it so if the player 1's bullet hits the player 2, then it does 5 damage and it'll wait like 0.5 seconds, so it doesn't instantly take a lot of health on impact. So now I'm gonna have a if player 1 or if player 2 wins screen, so you know who wins. Then made a text to tell the player to click the green flag to restart, and then I published the game on Scratch. This is the end of the video. I really enjoyed making these 3 games, and all 3 games will be linked in the description below, along with my social media.